Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Secondary Heroes podcast. We continue our watch of Wandavision. It's time for episode 4. We interrupt this program. This is your host, Trevor, and joining me as usual is...
Hey, guys, it's Prague.
The first 5 minutes of this episode was better than the last 3 episodes altogether. This is Zalorian Wolfgang.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said that. That's true.
That wasn't a high bar. That was like stepping over like an Ant-Man level.
Yeah, but you know what? I didn't say hot take or anything. This is just what I wanted to say. The first 5 minutes of that of episode 4 was so much fun. I just loved it. I'm like, okay, this is where the show should have been a long time ago.
I think that we should get to spoiler-free reviews and all that kind of fun stuff.
Oh, you guys don't want to just tiptoe around stuff?
No.
Okay, so if you keep the score at home, episode 1 was the 50s. Episode 2 was the 60s. Episode 3 was the 70s. So episode 4 is the 80s, right? No. That's why it's called We Interrupt This Program. And so as soon as I saw the title, I was like, all right. We're doing something, Marvel. I see you. I see what we're doing. And excellent job by them. That's my spoiler-free review. This brought me back into WandaVision. It brought me back into the MCU. And conveniently enough, because of the first 3 episodes, I started reading the comics that this entire run is allegedly based on, thanks to our awesome comic resident expert, Prague. And so now I do have a greater appreciation of what they're doing, where they're going, and tying it back into the MCU. Episode 4 came at the perfect time for me while I'm reading these comics, and I love what this series is doing.
Oh, wait, all right.
You read, how many comics have you read so far to get to this point?
Well, it only took like 24.
Yeah, it's about right for a run. Yeah.
Wow, that would take
for a storyline. Yeah.
I mean, you can skim through a lot. Like I went back and read the original, The Vision and Scarlet Witch from 1985, which a lot of this is based on, and then I had to read Avengers Disassembled. That's only 4 issues, and then House of M is only 8 issues. It's pretty quick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty quick to get through it.
Yeah,
they're like 24 pages with hardly any text. Like the Avengers Disassembled is pretty much just amazing artwork.
Yeah, sometimes they get lucky and you get good artwork that makes it easier to get through too. Because I've read some stories where I'm like, oh, if the artwork is so bad, you're like, I'm just gonna trudge through it. It's the way it is.
Now, well, now I'm curious. I mean, the comic experience compared to the story that's going on that we're all watching. Did you find the comic experience to be almost better than what we're seeing?
For me, the comics are just fun Easter eggs. Like, the story doesn't dive. Like, I can see why they. So, if you're wondering, I have Marvel Unlimited. So you can go back and read The Vision and Scarlet Witch. And in that, it's 12 issues. And you can skim through most of it really quick. Because it's a lot of... It's funny because there's a lot of like one-liners and funny things. So when I said, oh, this is a love letter to the past. That was before I read these comics. It's almost a love letter to the original comics. They literally celebrate Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Martin Luther King Jr. right in the middle. It's like all super goofy. And... I mean, I always thought it was just a love letter to the sitcoms, and they didn't actually care as much to the Marvel aspects. Like the end of one issue, it's like, after all, you'll never know what will happen around here next. Oh, you never do. And that's the last panel of the thing. I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what they're doing. So it's a different perspective on the show.
There you go.
Well, that's fun.
Well
now I'm going to be the odd man out.
You don't have to be.
No, settle down. Me read a book? Give me a break.
They're not books.
It has pictures in it. Come on,
it's a picture book.
That's true. I do. I can dig some picture books. But anyways, before me and Prague get into our spoiler-free, because you already gave yours, right, Trevor?
Right.
Okay.
Before me and Prague, and I'm all in on this series.
Loving it. Okay, great. So before we jump into ours. Make sure you go over to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Follow us, subscribe, like us, like whatever. I don't care. Do it all, man, because it's all fun. And then you can get updates on the latest drops on all of our episodes. Because, and one other thing, please go over to iTunes and rate and review our podcast, because that way other people can actually listen to us as well. If you like our opinions, maybe other people like our opinions. Shoot, share our episodes. Let's see what your friends have to say about us bashing or loving something that you bashed or loved. Anyways, At the end of the day, all this is free for you and it's priceless to us. Let's get back into it.
Very nice. Nicely said.
Thank you.
All right, Alex, what did you think of this episode, spoiler free?
I think people got a little taste of it at the beginning when I said that that first 5 minutes was fantastic. And then the rest of the episode was pretty fun as well. Is it bad to say that, like, I almost got, like, turned off when I saw Vision and Wanda in the episode? Like, it was almost like it was like a shock, like, oh man, these two again. Like,
if you don't like the characters, no. I mean, it makes sense if you don't like them.
But I was enjoying everything else. And it makes me think, is this what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is like? No? Okay.
No.
Because I was like, if Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is like this is kind of fun. But
the difference is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is an ABC Studios production, and this is a Marvel Studios production. And
it's a
the
very
difference
big
is
difference in production
Stark.
value, everything. Yeah. Stark. I like it.
Stark.
Very well done.
Stark. We talked about that last week. Anyway,
that was last episode.
So that I guess that's my spoiler free. I liked it. I enjoyed this one. This was fun.
Cool. Yeah, mine's kind of the same as every week. I love the episode. I do think this is the strongest, but I think it's strong only because the first 3 episodes exist and were so well made. That's just my take. I loved it. I continue to love it. I kind of wish we had more Wanda and Vision, and this episode happened like 20 episodes down the line, but that's fine. We'll get more, I'm sure. So, I thought this was great. And I will agree, Alex, though, that the first 5 minutes is phenomenal. So, yeah, that was definitely the best part of this series so far.
I will say, if they were to sprinkle this episode, like sprinkle bits and pieces of this in episode 3 would have been spectacular. Episode 3 would have been really, really, really cool, and then they could have jumped to maybe episode 4 and had maybe a little extra bits of Wanda and Vision at the end or something like that, rather than the little bit that they had. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. This was a fun one, but it could have been episode 3 for me.
Well, the fun thing though, taken as a whole, to Prague's point, if you take away the first 3 episodes, this episode by itself isn't particularly good. Like those first 5 minutes, it's shocking. Really? It ties into it, but the rest of it, it's tough sledding, trying to describe what's going on with scientific terms and those forced one-liners that aren't particularly funny between characters that we've seen before in the MCU. And so the episode itself, taken by itself, it's run-of-the-mill. But within the context of what they've established, it makes everything make sense and have meaning to it. But without that meaning, it's not a particularly great, well-made episode in terms of TV or art or anything.
Right.
Well, but at the same time, a lot of the stuff that happened in those first 3 episodes didn't really have anything to do with the outside world. If they had a little bit more of that outside world stuff sprinkled in, except for episode 1. I think episode 1, the way that it is, yes, I agree. That one can stay as is. I wouldn't do much to that. But we've said this, I feel, every week so far, is episode 2, we want a little bit more sprinkled in, a little bit more than what we saw. And then episode 3, we want a little bit more. It would be great if it was sprinkled in a little bit more rather than the 2 minutes here and there. And that's where I think, episode 3 could have benefited from having a little bit more of this. But I get that you guys, now that you guys have more of a background by reading the comics and whatnot, I can see how you could have more of a love for what's happening.
Well, Vision and Wanda are really interesting characters. If you look at it as from only MCU characters, we got a little bit more of Wanda from the outside perspective that kind of develops her character a little. But they're really peculiar, interesting characters, and their dynamic of why they're together. They go into a whole, almost one issue of why they're together, why Wanda actually is with a robot. You know, everyone thinks it's peculiar from the outside, and she actually goes into her motives for that. And so that they still need to do that in the MCU. They really haven't at all. If you haven't read the comics, you have no idea still about these two characters. That's why I think taking this episode by itself, it still doesn't. None of the people that we saw, they have no reason to even care about Wanda or Vision, for that matter. Like, they're pretty much working a job. They not like, oh, we have to get Wanda back. Wanda, it has nothing. There's no aspect to that at all.
Well, I mean, they didn't even really know that Wanda had anything to do with what was going on until later on in the episode. Like, they were still curious about why. I'm starting to get into spoilers.
We should probably
spoilers.
Okay. Yeah, we need to snap out of it. And
so one other two things I want to mention. So if you do want to read the comics yourself, Avengers 500 to 503 is the disassembled storyline, and the absolute best and worst part of comics is that fans absolutely hated this when they did those issues, and to the point there was such backlash they had to retcon this sequence of 4 issues from the Avengers because people hated that they killed main characters and they made characters turn evil and all this stuff. And so it's hilarious that the MCU's like, let's pick that as our storyline to set up Phase 4. That's great. But also
think about
comics storylines, they can just snap out of it.
They can.
No matter what, all these people everything that happens in that 4-issue run, they can just throw it, act like it never even happened. And that's so fun, but it also ruins the stakes of comics. It's a hilarious world of comics. The more you dive down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, you want to talk about no stakes, read comics. There are no stakes in comics. Unless you read like an independent comic, you know, like from Image Comics, like then, you know, maybe there'll be some stakes. But when you have an ongoing series, like they have to keep finding ways to bring back characters. So once they're dead, they're coming back for sure. Somehow, some way.
Yep.
Anyways. So yeah, let's talk about some spoilers.
Yeah, so this scene, we've mentioned the first 5 minutes and we mentioned people coming back. So this shows us the snap in the inverse of when everybody's brought back when Hulk brings everybody back from Endgame. And we haven't really seen this. We've seen in Far From Home, people are back, and there's that weird 5-year, but we actually haven't seen that initial Ash goes back, forms into a person. And this is great to see because it's in a hospital. And so that shows all the calamity that could potentially happen where people who aren't in spaces now fill those spaces and just chaos ensues. And then we also are introduced to somebody familiar who's Lieutenant Trouble. And hopefully you've seen Captain Marvel if you're watching this. Spoiler, that was in the 90s. She's grown up. And now this entire episode is kind of based on how she fits into the MCU.
Yeah, it was kind of like your character introduction. Even though we were introduced to her, a few episodes ago, this really is her like introduction to the MCU. So it was a lot of fun. I also want to call out real quick just because it was kind of the first thing we see is Monica's face coming back together. You know, those particles, the dust particles coming back together, which is a kind of like a direct call out to Joe Quesada's famous cover from House of M, where Wanda's face is coming apart as she's kind of mentally coming apart. So I liked that. And at first I was like, wait, what is this? Like, is this something having to do with her? But I went, oh no, it's the snap in reverse. And yeah, it was really cool to see the chaos that happens because this is also kind of the inverse of what does happen at the end of House of M, where Wanda says, no more mutants. And what does that mean? Well, if you're a mutant that's flying in the air, you're going to lose your ability to fly and you're going to fall to your death and die. So the same thing here. If people like say are in a hospital bed when they snap out of it and they're not there and there's someone else in that bed, they're going to land on top of that person or inside that person. Like who knows what's happening, right? Are they in it? Are they going to be in an airplane and fall from the sky? Like those are more questions I still have. I have questions for.
See, those are the questions that I've got.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's cool. Like the airplane thing. There's
how many
thousands
people
of people flying.
Right.
How many people died on the inverse of snap? Because imagine you were sitting in traffic. You're in your car.
Right.
And then you're snapped away, and then you're brought back right to that spot. You're in the middle of the freeway.
On the freeway, yeah, on the interstate.
I'm finally back, bam!
And dead.
Yes. But still, it was fun to see that. I know they probably won't touch on that again. Maybe they will. Hopefully they will. But at least we got to see some of that this episode.
all those questions of airplane, because you just appear where the plane was. The plane's gone.
Yep.
The plane landed. Whatever happened with it. So you're just splat on the ground. All the traffic people, and then there's the whole. If you're in a relationship with somebody, do you wait 5 years that they may or may not come back?
It's crazy.
Like that one doctor who's like, I've got to call my wife.
Right.
Who knows if she's even your wife anymore, dude?
I mean, it goes right into Monica's storyline that her mom recovered from cancer when she left. You know, her test came back negative. It was good news. And now in these 5 years that passed, she died 3 years ago.
It's crazy. Yeah. That was a crazy dark intro. Like, and I loved it. It was like, it kind of reminded me of the intro of Endgame when you see Hawkeye and his family disappear. Like, it had that same vibe.
Yeah.
We're in for something good.
Well, and that was the thing is like, the darkness of that. Like we're dissecting it right now, but when you're watching it, like you're in a hospital, so there's people being worked on and helped and stuff. You're not seeing the outside world of the chaos that's happening out there from the inverse snap. So yeah, it would be interesting if they just like panned out the window or something like that and just showed like a quick shot of just some of the madness that was going on outside. You know what I mean? Like, because like we just said, freeways would go into chaos because people would just start showing up all over. Yeah. But yeah, it was still fun. Still a very fun sequence of events. There was a point in that whole thing where she runs into a guy who just appears in front of her.
Yeah, just appeared. That was pretty crazy. He's like bamfed into reality. Like, oh, sorry.
For some reason, I think that might be someone, because the way that he fell down, you never see his face. I'm like, oh, I bet that was some. I ended up going back and going frame by frame, and I was like, no, that's just a stunt.
You never know with this show. I mean, it happened a lot on Lost. If you watch Lost, a lot of characters cross paths in the flashbacks. It's kind of fun.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, I never watched Lost. I tried the first 2 episodes, and I was like, yeah, this isn't for me.
I'm lost. It's too much. You're confused. I don't get it.
Cool. So where do we go from this inverse snap scene?
So now we transition to an outlook of S.W.O.R.D. And so we've seen the logo, we've seen it kind of referenced, but now we actually get to see the acronym. It's Sentient Weapon Observation Response Division. And this is really interesting because in the comics, it's nothing like what they're going to establish here in this episode at all. They're this is almost like an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. type of headquarters. Like, this is Sword and Shield. They have like some weird partnership and they work together on this whole deal. But now we zoom in and we see what Monica is doing, you know, what she actually went into, because she was obviously inspired by Captain Marvel in some capacity. And so she wants to connect in some way, but she doesn't have superpowers, at least not yet, if you know anything about Monica Rambeau. But I don't.
I was like, I don't.
And so now we get to go in and we learn about how this is more story of what happened after the blip and how we've had to deal over the past 5 years. And your mom passed away of cancer. She's the one who started S.W.O.R.D. And we have this new acting director, and how people, like, we've lost interest in exploring. They were, you know, the ones exploring, and now they've become more of a defense industry. Like, they were all out there, but so many people quit after the blip, and it changed the entire structure of their entire offices.
Yeah, it's kind of a neat way to describe it. So that I'd be scared too. Like half of existence went away. Like, I don't want to be up in space when that happens or something. Like,
Now I do have a question. In the comics, did they call it a blip?
I have no idea what they called it back then.
Because, I know that, like, us as viewers, we've always called it the snap. You know,
in the Marvel universe, people call it the blip.
The blip, right?
Yes, we call it the snap as fans. But yes, in the Marvel universe, it's called the blip.
Cool.
For whatever reason, it's the blip. That's what they want.
Well, and that I just thought that was cool because, you know, they had to kind of think of something catchy, you know, that sounds fairly similar to the snap.
Right, because remember, nobody knew that Thanos snapped. It's not like they were watching it live on TV. You know, they just knew something happened. It blipped. So,
cool. Rock Collector violently attacked on vacation in Wakanda. That's this news story.
There it is. Yep.
That, folks, is your clickbait of the week. Rock collector. I don't know why that gave me the giggles, but it did. Thank you.
That was a gem. That was a good one.
That was a
And
gem.
so-
Oh,
I had to do it. All right, so before we move on too far past this point, I do think it was kind of interesting that they did take away people going to space because they had a space program, and I think that might eventually lead to the possibility of the Fantastic Four. We'll see. That was my first thought, is that if they're going to space, they might send a certain, bunch of people into space that will become the Fantastic Four eventually. So I'm guessing that's where this might lead at some point. She'll mission, get
I
her
didn't even
power.
think of that, but that's a good. Yeah, it's a good.
could be like episode 9 where they're like, hey, let's.
I don't know if it'll
this-
happen in this show, but eventually I think that's what will happen with Sword. Yes.
Yeah. This is laying the groundwork for all kinds of connections to future properties and stuff.
That's what I said. This is the beginning of Phase 4.
Yeah, and so there's going to be all these little threads that are just opened.
So there you go. This is one of them. Now, what do you guys think about this acting director? Do you think he's good, or do you think he's bad? Do you think he's neutral?
There's something fishy about him. He's suspicious.
I felt weird. Like, it was almost like he was too nice and calm and good.
And then he's more suspicious when they're once he gets the information about what's going on with Wanda, that's when he really started being sus.
Yeah.
Oh, God. You can say suspicious. It's okay. We're not 12. And we don't have 12-year-old listeners either, so.
I never know. I doubt it, though. Yes, I do think he is suspect. So that's
I mean,
I feel like I've seen the actor in something else, and he was a bad guy.
I have too, and I'm like,
that's why I feel like he's suspicious. But...
Does he play a part? Does he play a part in the comics at all? Like, I have no idea who this guy even. I mean, I know who he is in the show, but I'm like, does it matter? He's just an acting director. I don't know.
He might matter within this show, but he doesn't matter based on the comics or anything.
Right. Okay. Yeah, he's a new guy. He's a new character altogether. So that's why I'm suspect of him.
I'm gonna look him up right now. But we can continue on, please.
Of course.
So now we're given kind of what is the process, like the get the ball rolling of the episode. There's a missing persons report, and have a special thing if any personnel returns. And so Monica gets to go like on her first day back out into the field.
Her first day.
They have like nobody else. I guess everyone quit or was blipped away or whatever. But she's going out, and so she goes, and we get to see Agent Wu, the FBI agent from Ant-Man. Hopefully, you've seen Ant-Man at some point. And so they go and talk to the cops from Eastview. And they don't even know what Westview is. They're like, there's only Eastview. And so that's the whole peculiar beginning. We know what Westview is as the viewers, but it still shows that something weird is happening.
And there's literally a sign right behind them that says Westview.
Right. That's funny. It's like, she looks up and goes like, sure? Like, are you saying what I'm saying? And it was really interesting. This is the first time that I realized that Westview stands for Wanda and Vision. So WV, Westview.
Oh my God. Look at you.
I don't know.
I would have never thought about that.
I did look at the population being 3,892 just in case. There's a reason the population isn't randomly put, not in Marvel shows.
I don't think there's anything random in the show anymore at this point. You gotta kind of look at
also the Sword drone copter had 5-57 on it.
I didn't see that.
I wrote down notes.
Right.
I don't know what they mean.
557 Avengers 557. All right, everyone go.
Well, let's go look. So what is the 3,000 number mean?
It's just the population.
Yeah, we don't know.
Wait, there's no
I'm
you didn't look anything up or anything. You're just mentioning it.
Yeah. Okay. He's just mentioning it. It could mean something. Who knows? We'll see. It is really. I do like the fact that he did the card trick. He finally figured out how to do the card trick that he was taught. So that was kind of funny to see for me. I just love that character. I love that actor. So it was good to see him in this episode.
Oh, John Krasinski. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic that he's now in the Marvel universe. I love it.
What a guy, right? He's finally going to become part of the Fantastic Four. John Woo is now going to be the leader of the Fantastic Four. Anyways, that's how it all ties together. It makes sense now.
John Woo / John Krasinski.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Anyways, I do think it's interesting that that he was sent there for a missing persons case, and they kind of just glazed past that really fast. And it wasn't until I watched the episode second time, I'm like, wait a second, that's right. They were going there because of a missing persons. And I totally forgot that by the end of the episode. So who is this missing person that they're coming to that no one can remember? Like, they go back to all of his known associates that knew him, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. So who is this missing persons, I wonder? And I think this missing person might be important.
Well,
whoever it is.
If they're basing this whole base around this missing person, I would hope that they're important.
Which makes me even more suspect of the acting director because he sent her there, I think, on purpose on day one.
Okay, so do you have an idea of who they might be looking for at this point?
So at this point, it might be Mephisto because we'll talk about this later, but I do think it is Mephisto or tied to Mephisto, possibly, or Agnes.
The Stark. Or the Stark Stork.
The Stork, right? Yes. So it's probably going to be one of those two characters, is my guess, and we'll explain when we get to another scene during the episode. So, anyways, Trevor, sorry, I just realized I derailed it.
No, but from a general perspective, isn't he essentially on Ant-Man's trail?
Oh, you're right. It could be Ant-Man.
Because
Ant-Man came back after the snap.
No, Scott. Yeah, he comes back after the snap. This is shortly, like, he barely came out back because of the rat. Because he's been gone for 5 years, too. Okay. So it could be Scott.
Yeah, but how does no one know Scott Lang, though? That doesn't make any sense. His daughter would know.
Because he was in the quantum realm. It messes with stuff.
They know who Scott Lang is.
I don't know. I thought it was going to mess with Ant-Man 3. That's what I thought the tie-in was going to be. Because the quantum realm, it's called, like, what's the stupid name? It's like quantum.
Oh, that's right. Quantum something. Quantum of Solace. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's Quantum of Solace.
It's a big crossover. No, you might be right, actually. I don't think it's going to be Ant-Man, but I do think this might actually tie into the quantum realm somehow. That might be how they explain some of this stuff, like the magical side of stuff, because they don't really have magic in the MCU, like they do in the comic books. So it could be quantum-based stuff. I don't know. It's something to think about.
Magic isn't a thing.
Right. Anyway, so yeah, it'll be. I'm interested to find out who this missing persons is, whoever it might be.
I'm interested to see what our listeners think too, because I know that we've got some avid comic readers out there, and I would love to know what they think at home.
Or if you're not, like if you're just watching the MCU films, maybe you are not tied to the comics and you're thinking, oh, maybe it's someone else in the MCU that I'm not thinking of. Let me know in the comments.
It can't always be Jake Gyllenhaal. So
I mean, it'd be great if it was, but it doesn't have to be him all the time.
It might be
Mephisto, right?
He's Mephisto.
Oh, that's right. You made a mistake last time. That's right.
Easter eggs.
And so now we get to the point where we get to see the energy field. We get to phase in. We get to see the actual kind of force field or whatever. And as any good person who's in the field and is testing things, the best thing to do to experiment is to put your hand in.
Yes.
It's just shove your hand in. The drone goes missing. Well, what the hell? I'll just jump right in.
So the one thing that I really, really like about this the force field is that it the closer you get to it, the more it looks like a CRT TV.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that, man. And it sucks for like the younger listeners or viewers. They'll have no idea what this is because TVs are totally different. But if you get really close to a CRT TV, you see the green, reds, and blue. Is it green, reds, and blue?
GRB.
Yeah, green, red, and blue. So it's, dude, I don't know. I eat that stuff up because I love old TVs.
I do too. And it would have been kind of funny if she had like the whole static charge thing when she gets too close to it.
Ooh, like a little like pop.
Yeah, like
just a little pop.
Yep. That was kind of cool. That was still really cool to see.
Yeah, I just think that it was aesthetically, it was beautiful because they could have done any kind of force field. They could have just made some warpy, like, ooh, this is nice and warped. But no, they went with a TV thing to fit with the entire show, which is really cool. I like it.
Nice. All right.
And
see,
so
hey, I've got positive things to say too.
Yeah, this is the point where it's the first tie-in to the first 3 episodes. So episode 4 is a lot about explaining the weird oddities from the first 3. So this is the drone going missing. You're like, oh, that's the drone that Wanda's going to find in episode 2. So we're going to have fun stuff like that throughout this entire sequence. So then Monica goes, she gets sucked into the force field. And then we go 24 hours later. And now we have Darcy. So hopefully, you know, Kat Dennings from Thor 1 and 2. She's back, and yay, look, look, I know that person. I've seen them because that's what this episode was all about.
Oh, really? Because I saw her and I was like, isn't she from Two Broke Girls?
Yeah, she is.
She's one and the same.
Or that dumb playlist movie.
Or that dumb playlist movie.
Nick and Nora's playlist. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay.
Indeed, sir. Anyways, yes, she is back.
I actually like her though. She's kind of spunky.
She's spunky. Spunky Brewster.
And she gets to come up with cosmic microwave background radiation.
Yes.
Which is also leftover radiation from the Big Bang because science. I don't know what kind of BS science explanation they were trying to come up with here. There's no. And so
and I like that the guy is like, yeah, I know what that is. Duh, from the Big
of course.
Bang. Duh. What the hell just happened?
And then we get to see the guy in a radiation suit, a hazmat suit, and he's going down into this little sewer pit kind of thing. And I wonder what that could mean.
Well, and I was curious at this point when you saw him go down there. I think we're all thinking the same thing. Like, this is the guy with the bees. Like, at least that was my thought. I'm like, okay, so how is it? Is he going to run into something with bees? Like, are bees just going to start following around? Like, how is this going to happen? And I like, and then later on in the episode, they hit on it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's interesting to think though, like, you know, is she completely in control of this thing? Because if he comes through at a point where she's not seeing him come through, like, how is she manifesting this? Is it like, this is my barrier, and anyone who enters my barrier is going to automatically be something that has to conform to this reality? It's interesting.
Right. Yeah.
And I did like the little touch of his harness becoming the jump rope.
The little kid jump rope.
That.
Yeah.
I hated those jump ropes. They always hurt me.
I always felt like they pinch your hairs and they always,
it was awful.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, terrible.
Being a kid.
It was fun seeing it. Toys
it
were
also shows that her thing does, her like force field or whatever goes subterranean. Because he's like, well, I guess we'll find out. Well, they found out.
It's a bubble. It's a full bubble. That's for sure. She is Glinda. Yes. Wait,
and now we get to the point where they use facial recognition to cast everybody. So now that Darcy's been watching the actual sitcom, she figured out how to actually broadcast the feed that's coming through because she used science. And then
they also just happen to have that device there, like, conveniently. I'm like, okay, sure. I'll let it slide.
They're sword, man. They can get whatever they want.
But it happens to be like right down below her, and she picks it up and like has old equipment. I was like, it's a stretch, but okay.
Well, and I thought that it seemed like she actually brought that into the room with her.
I don't think so. I think that was there underneath the desk.
I thought a guy grabbed it, and she's like, "Can I get a CRT TV or whatever?"
No, I meant before that. That device that she brought up was like old. Like,
that device. It seemed like she did bring with her.
Yeah, she did. Okay. Yeah, I thought she brought that with her.
It wasn't like just conveniently sitting there. I'm like, okay.
Which is still a little bizarre weird. Because this device, you would think that you could put all that stuff that's on that device onto an iPad and go along with your day.
Probably. Who knows? Yeah. And it was fun. It was at least aesthetically pleasing, I guess. So
yeah,
I loved it. I was like,
But when they started bringing in TVs, I love that, man. The old 50s TVs, yes.
Yeah, all about zoomed out to show her with her notepad watching the TV because that was the end of episode 1.
You had to show that.
Yeah. Oh my God, I didn't know this is what was happening. Zoom in.
Squeak, squeak, squeak. What?
Yes.
And so now they have fun with casting, where they're like, here's this person playing Herb, and they're doing the facial recognition from all across the globe. That was actually pretty fun when they're going and reciting how these people are cast in the different roles.
It was, and it was kind of cool
Naz.
to see. She actually cast people as different things, which I thought was pretty fun. And then you also get the big whiteboard where they're doing the same things that we're doing at home, like theorizing, like, what does this mean? What does the hexagon mean? Is Vision alive? And all these little, questions for things. And the one person that did not have an ID, though, was Agnes, which is interesting. So they have not ID'd her yet. Well, which is why I thought maybe she is the one that was the missing person, possibly.
Well,
I don't know.
Okay, so the all of the cast members of the show are they supposed to be people who lived in this town? Lived in this town, and then she created the bubble around the town, and so they're like, okay, this guy was like a gas attendant or something like that.
It seemed though when they're sourcing the facial recognition, the computer was like had a globe that was spinning around, and it dropped like pin markers.
So it was just random people. It wasn't
like they seemed like there was two different screens going on. I didn't look that closely though.
That's good to know. I'd look back at that. So I don't know. All I know is that she cast these people. So that means that these people are not like secret agents, except for Agnes, probably. So as far as we know, they're just under her spell for now. So fun scene.
And so now we get to the point with the radio signal. And so the radio signal is actually Agent Wu, and they played it back, and it doesn't sound like him. Whatever. That's fine. We want to show behind the curtain now. Like it doesn't match. But so that we had to explain that away as well. The entire episode's explaining away what happened 1 through 3, and this is another point. This is when the guy actually, his hazmat suit turns into the beekeeper suit rather than just him going down into the thing. And so then they keep trying these comedy, like they must have tried 10 different comedy lines by either Darcy or Agent Wu that just didn't hit for me. But then finally they got one where she's having chips and she asked, would you want one? And he starts talking about having a baby. That was funny.
That was great.
Really?
That was
one of the cheesier ones.
That's why it was funny. The way
he played it too was hilarious. He's like,
yeah.
Oh, the chip. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Best line.
I still feel I haven't had like a laugh out loud moment at all in this show all in the show. Yeah. So, but that's, I don't.
Smirk.
Yeah.
I'm not a laugh out loud person though.
Yeah, I'm not either. I'm like, oh my god. Yeah.
I like people to know when I'm happy. Okay.
But I smirked. I enjoyed that. That was a fun little scene. I also like the fact that she was invested in the show. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
It's like, what? I'm invested. She wants to know.
And so speaking of being invested in watching the show, we now get to the point with Geraldine, who's actually Monica, at the end of episode 3, where she starts talking about Ultron and Pietro, and they're like, did she just say Ultron? And then it glitches. Their feed stops. And so this is really interesting because we got a different feed at home than what the feed they're actually getting.
So who is editing that?
Yeah.
That's weird. Like, is she trying to, does she, like, get almost the wonder, like, does she know that this is being broadcast to the outside world? And if people are watching her, they don't want to see all the bad parts? Or is someone else doing that to not show that she is turning evil? Because they don't want that to happen.
It's gotta be like someone else type of thing. I can't imagine that.
That's my guess. I think what we see on the inside is her. What we see on the outside is somebody else. So she's able to manipulate some stuff on the inside internally for herself, like rewind time and stuff. But all those glitches on their end from the outside, I think that's somebody else tinkering with the feed.
So because there was also the glitch at the part with Kitty.
The radio part. Yeah. So that's interesting.
Because I'm thinking about the beekeeper. Because when she says no with the beekeeper, we don't see the rewind or anything like that. Like what happened with him?
All of a sudden, now is there somebody else? Like, we'll find out. Stay tuned.
I guess so. I guess so.
Dude, though I did like that scene too, as it kept changing perspectives and color and everything in the screen as it changed from like color to black and white, and the aspect ratio changed. I really liked that. That was fun.
They're having fun with that because this is the point where, so when it glitches in the 70s, we zoom back into the letterbox, but you can see that they changed the resolution of it. And so now we zoom in on Wanda's evil face when she's about to throw Geraldine out. And we get, because this part cut back to Vision talking to Herb and Agnes in the last episode. So now we get to see the full-on rendition of this where she's like, why'd you say that name? Because why'd you say that name? No.
Why'd you say that name?
I love a good running joke around here.
And so then she grabs Monica and we actually get to see her toss her out. She doesn't like send her into like some void that then spits her out. She literally grabs her and throws her through multiple walls all the way out through the force field.
She could have killed her.
Yeah.
I'm surprised she didn't, honestly. With that.
Me too.
This to me looked so incredibly silly. I wish they didn't do it.
It was a little silly.
Like when you're watching her and she's doing this.
I know. Yeah. I kind of wish they didn't show that part.
Like, give me a break, dude. That looks so dumb.
But at least they showed her go through the walls and stuff. All right. That was fun. But yeah, they could have done without the whole face. Like, do they need the face? No.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a bit goofy. But I mean, I guess they can't be perfect with everything, right, guys?
Well, they bring goofiness back with she turns around and Vision comes in and Wanda sees dead gray Vision with the hole ripping out of his head. And that was like jarring, brings you right back into what's kind of going on with Wanda, where she just masquerade. Like sometimes it slips through a little masquerade that she's playing in her head.
Yeah.
I loved this because he looked so incredibly creepy that it was just, I don't know. There was something like his dead eyes, the grayscale, like everything about it was just super eerie and creepy, and the big dent in his head where Thanos pulled the rock.
And he's still talking normally too.
Right.
Even though
he's not changed at all. He's like, what is it, dear?
It's almost like a zombie was standing there talking. I don't know. I thought that was really cool. And then she like looks down.
The episode, sure.
Yeah, she looks down.
She just looked down like, oh my god,
yeah.
I'm not seeing him. I look back up. Oh, you're in color again. Perfect.
Yeah,
okay.
Back to being Vision.
Reset the scene here. But that also begs the question, is she seeing him as like the Vision of the last time she saw him, like when he was dead, or is she using his corpse somehow as a puppet?
Weekend at Visions.
And there's a tell of the episode. I like it. Weekend at Visions. I'm guessing not. I think that she is just envisioning him.
Hey, next episode we're gonna be in the 80s. Come on, they gotta do a Weekend at Visions.
That would be funny. God, that'd be really funny, actually.
Have like a rope to his hand.
It's not movie-based, it's TV-based, so it won't work. Anyway.
I'm glad
so after this point, we do actually, Vision says we can go wherever. And Wanda says, no, we can't. Which is really sad.
Yeah, this is the episode where you really start realizing how sad this is. It's like, can't really.
That's of her own doing. Like,
well, she can't take Vision anywhere. He is dead.
What's she gonna do? That's what she meant by that.
Well, go to Wakanda. They'll fix him up. Sure.
Maybe. We'll see. But yes. So we get that scene. And then we cut to the... Well, no, there's another scene. We cut back out to...
Monica,
right? Yeah. Okay.
And she says it's all Wanda. Right. Over and over again. It's all Wanda.
Which is interesting. Because, yes, I think she's right. It is all Wanda. But I think that's more to the audience like, okay, here, you guys have been wondering what's going on the whole time.
Yeah, it's telling the audience.
It's Wanda. But it's really not, is what I'm guessing. I think they're trying to tell us, hey, guys, it's all Wanda, which it is. I mean, I think she is. This is her reality. But I think the big reveal at the end is someone else is pulling the strings underneath all this, too.
If you think that they're sitting there spoon feeding us that it's all Wanda, I mean, if you watched the first 3 episodes and didn't think it was Wanda, then what's wrong with you?
No, I think that it's a 2-part thing. I think what they're doing is, obviously they're telling the audience, but I think they're really, obviously she's telling S.H.I.E.L.D., or not S.H.I.E.L.D., sorry, I'm going to say that a lot probably. She's telling S.W.O.R.D., no, this is all Wanda. But it's also, I think, trying to throw people off that are saying, well, yeah, of course, it's Wanda. It's Wanda. They're confirming it. When in reality, it's going to be someone else pulling the strings that made her do that. Gotcha. It's like, hey, don't you want your dead husband back? Ha ha ha. You can have him back. Just do this.
Mephisto.
Yeah, just do this one thing.
Wanda, she did say, I have everything under control. And that's when they play Voodoo Chili and they go back out from Letterboxd.
So good. That was a great cut. That was a great cut. I have everything, darling. What was it? I wrote it down too. Don't worry, darling. I have everything under control.
Yep. And she doesn't.
So good. So good. I like that part too, because like when they sit down at the couch, like Vision looks dead eye into the camera with that creepy grin. I don't know if you caught that, but he just sits back and just slowly turns to the camera with that smile on his face. Ugh. I don't know. It creeped me out.
I did not catch that.
Oh, watch it again.
It's funny because really I did. Creepy. I was like,
he just slowly turns up and goes, like
it almost looks like he's like, I'm gonna be stuck here forever.
Yeah, like oh my God, save me! That I'm stuck in whatever this nightmare situation my wife has got me.
He made a face of I'm stuck. That's how I took that smile.
It was eerie. I really liked it. I really like eerie, creepy stuff like that. So yes, that was the episode.
Yes, it was.
That was the whole episode. Nothing else.
Was the whole episode? No. And there you go. Cut to whatever that screen is. Please stand by. Screen.
The credits.
Yeah.
Yes. And so now that this episode is complete and we kind of went over it, is there any overarching takeaway you came with, or any like, oh, this kind of, I know what they're gonna do next episode? Like, do you think now we're gonna go back to doing an 80s sitcom and then we're gonna like see glimpses of Darcy watching it, or do you think, like, I really don't know where they're gonna go? Like, this episode was specifically called "We Interrupt This Program," which fits in with the whole TV narrative, but also is it just a blip in episodes? Like maybe they do 5, 6, and 7 are one way, and then 8 jumps back and something like that.
At first I thought so, but I'm starting to think no. I think it's going to start getting crazier from here on out. I still think we're going to go through the decades with different sitcoms, but I think it's going to be disrupted more and more, because at this point she's starting to break down and they're starting to break in. So things are happening now. I bet whoever is trying to like manipulate the situation from the inside is also getting frustrated, because the last episode, Agnes was like, don't say anything. Like, stop mentioning stuff. And I think whatever she's doing in this town is going to get to her, and she's going to start doing stuff too. So I think you have 3 different scenarios happening here, and I don't think it's going to be the same. I think it's going to be a mixture of a lot of different things.
Sorry, we were both grinning because you froze, and you you froze at such a weird looking face.
Yes.
So for myself,
it was like Vision just talking. It was just like this dead frog face.
So for myself, I think they'll probably do one episode as the 80s, and I don't think that they'll go into much more. And the only reason why I say that is because if you watch like the little snippets that they show you in commercials and whatnot, you don't see anything past the 80s point. And I think they're doing that on purpose, because there really is no outside of the 80s. Because what are you going to do with the 90s? You're going to do like a Malcolm in the Middle type of episode?
That'd be fun.
You know what I mean? Oh, no, that'd be great, because Malcolm in the Middle was fantastic. But I mean, even if they were to go into the 2000s, do you do a Lost episode? Even though that's not a sitcom?
It's a sitcom. I'm not sure.
We talked about Lost earlier, and now that's stuck in my head. Thank you, Prague.
Yes. I don't know. I don't watch the previews, so I have no idea.
Well, I guess 90s they could go with a Seinfeld.
Isn't that like Saved by the Bell?
It's all right.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
Or like Seventh Heaven, or I don't know.
Oh, Seventh Heaven.
Hey, Dawson's Creek. I am still into that show, man. I've only got one more season left. Fantastic.
So they could still do it. I think 80s is just because that's episode 5 and that's all they wanted to do with the trailers. But I like Prague's idea that now, like, every time that there's a disruption, she loses control. Like, the beekeeper guy comes in and that's a surprise. And so she loses control. Now Geraldine comes in. It's actually Monica Rambeau, who she didn't plan her little thing for, and she loses control. She sees Vision dead, and it breaks things up. And so I think she's gonna start like they'll be maybe midway into an 80s episode, and then there's gonna be a really jolting like thing, whether it's caused by Sword doing something from the outside or Agnes doing something from the inside. They're gonna try. Wanda's gonna try to keep it on point, and so Prague's point, they're gonna start being more and more disruptions to it.
Yeah, they're gonna break Wanda until she becomes insane in the membrane.
But I would almost think that that's gonna happen kind of next episode. I can't imagine that they're gonna go past the 80s. I think that she's gonna be stuck in that little. I don't know.
No, you might be right. Actually, you might be right.
Because I know there is a sequence from the trailer where she's wearing the Scarlet Witch comic costume.
Oh yeah.
And Vision has
right.
the
Halloween,
the golden green. Yeah.
Right, and that's supposed to be the 80s Halloween episode.
Gotcha.
Which, dude, any 80s sitcom always had a Halloween episode, and they were always my favorite. So
always.
I think I can.
You might be excited for the next one.
Hey, man, I think I'm on board on this show at this point.
Well, when you talk about Halloween and the 80s, again, the 1985 The Vision and the Scarlet Witch comic series, and the issue that's Halloween, literally demons from are already dead, and they get Wanda to their realm, and their goal is you were able to create life because she's already created the twins, or at least had one baby. We need that power so we can get life back. So that definitely fits with the Halloween timeline of the comic storyline.
Oh my goodness. See, you guys are reading ahead.
I was reading ahead. It's just like being a teacher. You just have to be one page ahead of the kids.
So have millions of other people who have read comic books. Yes.
I like that. I never thought about that.
That was good. Very nice.
I don't know. Is there anything else? Yeah, is there anything else we should bring up?
No, I had some tidbits, but nothing really. Yeah, that's about it. That was a fun episode. I'm really looking forward to what's happening next now.
Yes, they have me all on the WandaVision train now.
Cool. Well, I'm glad.
Well, see, okay, and for me who didn't read the comics, they've now hooked me into this. I'm now invested into it because they took all that intrigue from the first 3 episodes and they just gave me a full episode of intrigue, and now I'm into it. So that's what I needed.
Here's 3 minutes. Oh, look, here's Darcy or Agent Wu at the end of episode 4. But they decided to give you the whole episode because one of the big things I put in my note is feels like a Marvel property now. That was right after the blip and stuff. It like the first 3 episodes felt like it was trying to do something else. And now it kind of grounded itself. It felt like MCU, just in terms of the production quality, the film design, the cinematography. It felt kind of like a movie just in a 30-minute bit.
It did, actually. It definitely felt like a Marvel movie.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah. Very nice. Well pun.
So I'm excited what comes next.
Yeah, I'm glad that they're now starting to get that Marvel feel. So, yeah, I'm in.
All right, guys.
Maybe I won't be so cynical.
You have to be cynical. That way it pays off when you become positive.
Aww.
Well, so that's what this feeling is? Oh my god. The colors, they're so vibrant.
It's like when you go from black and white to color in the 70s.
There you go.
So good. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, tune in next week.
Everyone listening, we're going to keep watching WandaVision all the way until March 5th or 8th or 12th, some date in March. I don't know. Let's go with all those dates. Sure. Until then, be sure to stay tuned to Secondary Heroes. Follow us everywhere. This is your host, Trevor, and we'll talk to you next time.
Prague out.
Hey, did you know that it took the inventor of the Rubik's Cube a month to figure it out? Hey, this is DeLorean Wolfgang. See you later.